Hello, welcome to WinDbg Complete Guide. Myself Anand and I'll be the instructor to this course. Before we start the course itself, let's see how the course is organized. So this course has 3 chapters. In the chapter 1, we're going to see the development tools and how a debugger works. Basically concepts. Also, we're going to see some debugger commands and how to interact with the debugger. In chapter 2, we're going to see different scenarios. We're going to see sample applications and scenarios based on that. We will see kernel mode as well as user mode samples and problems in chapter 2. In chapter 3, we're going to look at real world dumps. So we're going to use the real world dumps as examples in chapter 3. Also, we will see some related tools and concepts in chapter 3. So that brings us to chapter 1. So what is WinDbg? WinDbg is a debugger. In fact, it is the most powerful tool in Windows platform. And what is a debugger? It is a tool with which you can look into computer programs. So it is like a MRI or X-ray scan for a human body. So with these scans, you can look into the tissues inside the human body. Using a debugger, you can look into the computer memory of a program. We will see how that is done shortly throughout this course. Now let's have a look at what is a debugger. It is one of the pillars of computer programming. Others being operating system, compilers, programming language, hardware, and then the debugger. Debugger is nothing but another computer program. It is like any other program like compiler or text editor or Word or Excel. It's just another computer program. One of the things it can do is read and write to a program's memory. So that is a special thing only debuggers can do. It can also stop the program with a breakpoint. We will see what is a breakpoint soon. It can also read and write to CPU registers. That is another thing a debugger can do. It can read and write to CPU registers of other programs, the programs which it is debugging. Normally, when we use a debugger to debug a computer program when that program behaves incorrectly. This is to solve a problem connected to a computer program. That is where normally we use debuggers. Basically, there are 2 ways to troubleshoot a complex system, whether it be real world or programming world. So one way is to look at the logs. Logs behave like a CCTV camera in which you have a timely log of different event happens in the past. Or the other way to troubleshoot a complex system is using photographs. So if you have the photograph of a particular event, you will be able to figure out certain issues. And debugger behaves exactly like that, at least in the production debugging scenarios. So dump is nothing but a photograph of a particular instance of a program or operating system. We will see both cases. And our focus is going to be that. Now let's have a quick look at how a user mode debugger works, or how everything we discussed so far fits together. A program which is developed in a text editor, which is given to a compiler, then it generates a binary loaded by the operating system, and then finally the debugger connects to that program when an issue comes in that program, or just to understand that program. That's what we're going to see in a whiteboard. So in this case, we are going to explain the user mode debugger. So there is another thing called kernel mode debugger, which we are going to see later. We are focusing on user mode debugger in this particular whiteboard session. We have the text editor here, which we develop the programs. This is the text editor. This can be Visual Studio. This can be Notepad++, anything. I'm just going to call it text editor. Now the text editor creates a program and gives it to the compiler. Compiler is the entity which converts a computer program into binary, which CPU understands. This is the compiler, and the compiler generates the binary. The binary is the output of the compilation stage. Like I mentioned, it could be Linger, it could be any other tools which generates the binary. It can be a runtime, like in the case of Java, it doesn't matter. This is a binary. And the binary is loaded by the operating system. Operating system loads the binary into the computer memory. This part is in the disk. I'll draw the disk here. This is in the disk. This is a program. This is another program. It's all running in user mode. So this is called user mode. And this is kernel mode. Just a short overview on user mode and kernel mode, because I'll be using this term throughout this presentation. User mode is where all the programs runs, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. And kernel mode is where the drivers and the operating system itself is running. Kernel mode code has a lot more privilege, a lot more access to the hardware and so forth. All this program we discussed so far runs in user mode. This is not a program. This is not a program yet. It has to be loaded by the operating system to become a program. Now, once it is loaded by the operating system, so it is loaded by the operating system like this, and it becomes a running program. We created the binary and we loaded the running program. This is a running program right now. Program is running in the operating system. Now, Debugger is another program which is started separately by the operating system, ultimately by the user, to connect to this program and debug. This is the read and write of the memory of this program. We will shortly see a demo of this entire process, building and creating a program and generating the binary and debugging it with a debugger. Now let's get back to the slides. So conceptually, we have seen what is a debugger and how it interacts with the program. We will see a live demo of that as well. Before that, we have a couple of debuggers here. One is the Visual Studio. Visual Studio is the integrated debugger with the development environment. So it has a text editor, debugger, a lot of other things. This is normally we use for programming. When we develop code, that is when we use Visual Studio Debugger. GDB is the Linux world debugger, and WinDbg is the topic of this particular course, and it is way more powerful than all these particular tools. Windows error reporting, that is also a debugger which collects the dump of a crashed application in Windows. There are a lot more debuggers which is not present in this list, like DebugDiag, NTSD. There is a debugger for Java, Golang, all these programming languages. So there are two main scenarios in which you will use a debugger. One is when you develop code, like I was mentioning in the case of Visual Studio or Eclipse. You use a debugger to develop code, to understand how the code flow works, and to step-by-step execute your code, putting breakpoint and stuff like that. That is not the focus of our course. Our focus of the course is the production debugging. So your code is in production and it is causing an issue. It is crashing, it is hanging, it is taking high CPU, doing multiple things. So that is the focus of this particular course. And of course, dump analysis or post-mortem analysis. That is what we're gonna discuss in this course. Now, coming back to the question, what is WinDbg? It is a kernel as well as user mode debugger for Windows platform. It is the most powerful tool, like I mentioned, in Windows platform. It is free download. It comes with the Windows SDK. It used to be free download by itself before, but now it comes with the Windows SDK. We will see it shortly. And the older version of WinDbg, not the WinDbg preview, was Xcopyable, which means that you don't need any installation. That's a very, very interesting fact and useful feature of the tool. You can Xcopy to a production machine and you can start debugging. So that was one of the features. Still, that kind of versions are being shipped by Microsoft, but the WinDbg preview is not Xcopyable, just to mention. It supports same machine debugging as well as remote debugging. You can debug a program which is running in the exact same computer in the case of user mode debugging. Also, you can debug a program which is running remotely. In the case of kernel mode debugging, only remote debugging is possible. We will see that as well.